but thank you so much for joining us today. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Richard. I will be emceeing or hosting this event today with Project Hope, which we'll talk about in a minute. Right now, just to talk about our house cleaning stuff, our housekeeping stuff, I'm sorry. Please keep yourself muted unless you have something to say. Of course, we want to hear from you, but we just try to avoid the background noise. So if you have something to say, please unmute. But if you're not speaking, please keep it on mute so we're not getting that background noise, okay? And this event is being recorded. So if you're not interested in having your face on camera, which we understand, just know that this event is being recorded so you're aware when you do chime in to ask a question. And with that, we'll give it another 30 seconds and we will get started. Okay, everybody, let's get this started so we stay on track today. We want to get out of here right at 2:30. Thank you so much. There you go. Thank you, Madeline, for sharing so we can see each other a little bit. All right, so once again, my name is Richard. I am owner and lead consultant at McNamara Holdings, part of the Project Hope partnership, right? Which is a 13 agency partnership. That ringing in the background, that ringing, I don't know if you guys hear, we're meeting a ton of people coming in right now. So I'm trying to not get thrown off by the ringing, but I do appreciate everyone logging in. We are a 13 organization partnership with Minnesota Housing and Finance Agency. We are one of many field partners, which is doing this work of outreach and navigation, okay? Outreach in the form of educating and helping people better understand and know that there's a rental assistance program out there for the state residents, right? This is for the entire state. We are focusing on Hennepin County as far as our partnership goes, but this is a state issued program, right? I just took a call this morning from a person in Rochester. So everyone in the state is being impacted by this program. The other part of this is navigation. Events like this where we bring together the community to better understand and utilize this resource, which we're going to talk about today. There we go. You can see some people. Hey, Tierra. Hello, everybody. I see Mr. Westbrook. Thank you for joining us today. Hey, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so all of my counterparts couldn't be here today. I almost want to hold on because we're still getting a lot of ringing in my ear, so people are still joining. So I'm thinking maybe we're going to just hold off another minute, just a minute or two, because we've had at least 10 people join in the last 30 seconds that I've been talking. So I'm sorry, everyone. I just want to give everyone a chance to log on because it's throwing me off the ring. I'm just going to be honest. There's ringing in my ears and I cannot focus. So thank you for your patience, everybody. All right. So it sounded more like we have everyone there. Okay, everyone's comfortable. Thank you once again. I do apologize. I know you folks can't hear, but as we admit people, there's a ding that goes off so we know they're coming. And it was just a lot. So I had to just kind of take a break. But we're back now. So starting over, right? Project Hope. It's a partnership with Minnesota Housing and Finance where we provide outreach in the form of education and navigation, where we're hosting events like this, where we bring the community together. You're still part of the community, where we bring the community together and we inform you and we talk about Rent Help Minnesota. What is this? What is this program that's come out through the state? Now, Project Hope is your host today and the partnership I'm involved in, but my counterparts couldn't be here, at least some of them couldn't be here today. So what we'd like to do is show you a video that just outlines what Project Hope is, so you know what we're bringing to the table and the services that we're providing. Can we start that video, please, Madeline? Or
yep, I'll start it.
Maya? Thank you.
Marginalized COVID-19 income impacted households.
Sorry, I'll start from the beginning.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Sirleaf. I'm the grant manager for Project Hope. It's a Minnesota Housing Finance Agency project that we, CMR, as a few partner, are implementing. However, we do have our own name for the project. We call it Project Hope. Hope is Housing Outreach Partners Engage. So what we're doing with that project is outreach and navigation to be able to reach to the more marginalized about COVID-19 income impacted households in Minnesota, in the broader Twin Cities area, to be able to have them have access to this rental assistance program. Three of which are navigators, and the other 10 are outreach organizations, trusted organizations in various cultural areas to be able to get a word out to help folks apply for this COVID-19 housing relief.
My name is Richard. I'm the owner-operator of what they call the lead consultant at Maximum Holdings.
I'm Joanna Osman, and I'm the director of a nonprofit called Second Community Resource.
My name is Kamati Dien. I am the executive director of the organizations of Liberians in Minnesota, OLM.
I'm Elsa, and I work with the AmeriCorps organization.
My name is Comfort Dono. I am the founding executive director of Pomolani, Minnesota African Women Against Violence.
Mi nombre es Ruth Torres y trabajo en CAPI USA.
Hi, I'm Heather Wellness, and I'm with the Aliveness Project.
Currently, this is a rental assistance program. It is funded through the state of Minnesota, and the funds are being passed out. We're specifically working with Hennepin County. All cities in Hennepin County we'll be working with. And what we'll be doing is we'll be doing outreach in the form of letting people know about the program and how you engage, but also events where you can come in and you can talk to someone, you can sit down and get some help in your preferred language as well.
So Second is acting as a navigator organization for anybody who has back due rent or utility bills. The Hennepin County area, people will call in or go to the website of helpmn.org. There may be need for our assistance if you don't have a way to upload your documents, or if you don't understand the instructions how to apply, or if you qualify. So that's what our job is, to help you navigate the whole system and get your back bills paid.
And we have just added another service called the Service Assistant Navigation. So people coming into the office, we help them to navigate through. And if they have challenges with, we have staff to help do that for them, to navigate those systems.
As an AmeriCorps member working with Rent Help MN, I'm acting as a navigator. So I'm helping those who call in finish their applications.
Our role working with Project Hope is actually being an outreach program, and we have been advertising the availability of assistance with rent in our community. And so we make sure that our community members have access to the resources in the language that they understand. And when we do identify people who need support with rent, we then send them to our partner agencies within Project Hope, who are assisting with the application for rent assistance.
Y nosotros podemos ayudar a toda la comunidad, específicamente en Hennepin County, a llenar la solicitud, la aplicación, a verificar si realmente califican para este proyecto, a subir los documentos que se necesitan para este proyecto y a responder cualquier duda que tengan. Por más sencilla que sea, aquí estaremos para ayudarles.
My role is going to be to help those who are living with HIV or are at risk of HIV connect to our Hope, which will help you fill out the application for rental assistance.
Macmor Holdings is a culturally inclusive African American organization. We are going to be doing outreach and navigation for our clients that we work with for our organizations, which is young folks between the ages of 18 and about 5, and also those who are just as impacted, or what people know as having criminal background, a criminal barrier in your past. So those are our two kind of base populations.
We are providing education and services to help all Minnesotans access financial tools and affordable housing within their faith guidelines. The community that we serve are mainly East African immigrants in Minnesota and the general Muslim population as well.
The Liveness Project serves people who are currently living with HIV and who are at risk of HIV throughout the Twin Cities and Minnesota area.
We engage our community through our local, but this Liberian community is unique that we have sub-tribal group, and we have 16 tribes and 15 counties, what we refer to the equivalent of what we call a state. And then we have a community organization portal when we communicate with our various tribal group that the OLM is a central point. So that's how we disseminate information.
The AmeriCorps is a federal organization. We work with all sorts of communities.
We're a culturally specific nonprofit organization whose main mission is ending gender-based violence for African immigrant women throughout Minnesota.
En CAPI USA nosotros ayudamos a todas las personas que son refugiados, inmigrantes, gente de color, y en general a toda la comunidad que necesite recursos. We will help people with the application in Hmong, Spanish, and English.
We'll be making sure you're abreast of the latest information about these COVID relief programs, which is our Minnesota Rental Assistance Program. But also we'll be informing you of the dates when you can come in and get that one-on-one assistance if you need it, or just sit down and get your questions answered. Sometimes that's nice, just to come to a place where you can get your questions answered so you can relieve that stress, because not paying your rent, I mean, that's ultimate. That is the ultimate stress there, not knowing, that your place is, or just knowing that your place, your residence is in jeopardy. I would say stay tuned. The help is coming, right? And I know people have heard that, and there was a first round that really, really kind of put people in a place, because not everyone can get help, but just stay tuned.
I know that for a lot of our community members, asking for help is not something that is very common. And there's a lot of myths around getting support through government programs. But I really want to urge people that this is a pandemic we're in the middle of, and we're all impacted by the pandemic.
I know this last year has been very difficult for many of us, and many of us are feeling like there is no hope out there. But thankfully, there is hope coming, and there's hope for those who are in need of rental assistance.
And it is okay to ask for support.
It can be an overwhelming process, but that's why we're here. We're here to help.
It is okay to ask for help.
Nosotros entendemos que este proceso puede llegar a ser frustrante, pero nosotros estamos aquí para ayudarles con todo el proceso, sea para verificar si califican, para llenar la aplicación, para subir los documentos. Estamos aquí, la ayuda está en nuestra comunidad y podemos hacerlo juntos.
The U.S. government, the state agencies that are providing this support realize the huge needs that COVID-19 has caused.
This is your money. This is the money that the government of the United States has set aside just for you to get paid up so that you don't have to worry anymore.
There's hope. There's help. Just reach out.
Hope is on the way. Don't give up. You're not going to be evicted.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so initially we had a different idea, but I'm seeing we have several people on this call. So if we could do is, can we put names in the chat, and if possible, maybe the organization, or if you're a landlord of the property, or just something that signifies you, because we won't have a chance to actually go around and introduce ourselves like I originally wanted. I do apologize, but with over 80 people on this call, obviously, time's a factor. With that being said, with time, thank you so much for my partnership. I am incredibly humbled. I'm an honor to be a part of such a culturally rich partnership where we can really meet people where they're at, meaning speak that language, right? Be to talk directly to clients. So if you have folks that are some language barriers, there's some language gaps here, don't be afraid to tell them to give us a call. There's some cards. We will be talking about these more later. They will be at our office. I'm not sure. I'll let Beth kind of chime in how we'd like to get them to people. I know you can come pick them up from CRMS, and I'll let her chime a little more about the address. Or we can actually mail these cards to you where you can give them to your residents so they can get some help. And there's some information on back as well, which we'll be talking about. With that being said, Beth, do you mind if I turn it over to you for a brief possibly legislative update, as well as just some information about CMRS, which you are the executive director of? Beth, you there?
I'm here. Thanks,
Cool,
Rich.
cool.
Beth Bailey with Community Mediation Restorative Services and one of the 13 partners for Project Hope. And we did something like this in 2020 with the previous COVID housing assistance program, understanding that it's an online application and it's difficult for people, and people are being asked to provide an awful lot of personal information. And it really helps to have these trusted messengers, these communities in our organizations that are go-to resources, and people who are thinking about and submitting these applications have trust in these organizations who will help them get to and through the application process. There's a really important role also for landlords in this, and want to make sure that we're providing support to landlords so landlords can support their residents in getting through this application period. So just a quick update on the Minnesota legislature. You may be aware that the Minnesota legislature came to the end of the session without having a plan for the end of the eviction moratorium. And there's a desire on behalf of both the Senate and the House to come up with what they're referring to as an eviction moratorium off-ramp. In other words, instead of just flipping a switch and shifting this backlog to the courts, they want to have a plan in place that would bring the eviction moratorium to the end. There is a working committee, and they are working right now. They may have even finalized their plans over the weekend. And then the legislature comes back on June 14th to pass legislation of what this eviction moratorium off-ramp process would look like. And some of the things that they are considering with this money that Minnesota Housing Finance is starting to allocate, and we're serving as that field partner, it's a housing stability program. So the tenants are the applicants and checks go to the landlord. It's a very generous program that funds up to 15 months of rent. And there's a lot of money that has been made available through the COVID assistance program. So it's not like last year where we were worried about running out of money. The concern more is getting the money out soon enough, because there was this 6-month gap between the federal programs. So one of the things that's really important for landlords to know, and what the legislators are considering in all of this, is since it's a housing stability program, these funds are not awarded to anybody that has been evicted. So somebody might be eligible for 10 months of back rent. Once they are evicted, they are no longer eligible applicants. So it's funding that goes to the landlords for back rent for current tenants. And then the Commissioner Ho at the Senate hearing last week shared some tips for landlords, and I'll pass those along from that legislative meeting. One is they are hearing that some landlords are providing scanners so that residents can stop down to the office and scan some of the documents, because everything has to be uploaded electronically, and we have a lot of folks that just don't have the ability to do that. So landlords are providing scanners. A second is if landlords can provide residents with a copy of their rent ledger, an electronic copy, that's something that tenants are going to need to upload, and it's probably something that's easier for you to access. The third is to let your residents know how you are registered in this system so that their application aligns with you. And Richard's going to be walking you through that whole process to make sure that their application is connected to your information. And then the fourth thing that Commissioner Ho was trying to put out there for landlords is there's a unique feature to this rental assistance program. Tenants can ask for not only back rent, but 3 months forward. And that's not a typical thing with a rental assistance program. So if you can pass along to residents that they can remind them to ask for that 3 months forward, because it's not granted unless it's asked for. So pass along that reminder. And Richard will be talking about the phone number that you can call. We have a special option for landlords, and that your residents can call to reach some of the organizations that you just heard from in that video. And I'll post that phone number over and over again in the chat as well. Special session again is June 14th. I imagine it's going to be a very short special session. Their plan is to have all of their work done ahead of time before they bring everybody back. And after the legislature makes its decision, then the courts will figure out how they're going to implement. So there's actually going to be 2 steps to this eviction off-ramp period. And Richard has agreed to offer these landlord workshops monthly because information continues to change, and it's a confusing atmosphere, and the application process continues to be improved as they go along. They made the decision, Minnesota Housing made the decision to launch it before they knew it was completely ready, but they knew that there was a lot of pressure out there to get the money out. So they launched it with everything they absolutely had to have in place, but they're continuing to work on the application process. Rich, did I cover everything you wanted me to cover?
I think so. And you also gave me time to put in the information in the chat. So perfect.
Okay, very good.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Beth, do you want to, just a couple other things. Beth, do you want to put the address for CMRS in the chat? And I know you talked a little bit about some materials. So if landlords would like some postcards or some print information to give their tenants or just utilize themselves, I know that they can come to CRMS on Wednesdays to pick up those materials, or they'd have an option of calling in and we'd mail them to them as well. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. Or you can, I'll put my email address in the chat here. And if you want them mailed to you, just send me an email saying I need 50 in English, 25 in Somali, 25 in Spanish. We have 4 different languages. We have English, Spanish, Somali, and Hmong. So if you want a stack of the postcards that include the rent help information and they include the Project Hope information on them, if you want us to mail those to you, just send me an email. I'll put my email address, or stop by on Wednesday afternoons. And our office is in New Hope, and we have people coming and picking up materials for the process.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll just respond to a quick question in the chat from a Jennifer. And thank you for the question, Jennifer. To answer that, we are a Hennepin County Pacific program. Occasionally we get calls or emails from other counties, greater Minnesota, and we try to do what we can, but we are tasked with Hennepin County, which is big enough on its own, right? Okay, so with that being said, one last thing I wanted to talk about is a little tech. For those who want to assist their tenants with signing up for this rent help program, you can use your phones. Now, I know Commissioner Ho said, you want to get scanners, and yes, you want to have scanners available, but when they aren't available, having that app on your phone where you can turn to it, it's actually called Genius Scan. Now, not to promote it, but it's a premier app, it's free, and it works. It works, and it's completely electronic. You can move it around from your phone, and it's right there in the palm of your hand, right? Sometimes we don't have the whole printer scanner hookup we need. So just another option out there for landlords. If you're on the spot, if you're working with your tenants, your residents, and you want to get those documents scanned in, maybe use your phone. Download that free app, get the documents into your phone. You can do what you want with them later. Now you have the information you need, though, right? It's electronic now. All right. So moving forward, we got everything done from this, MRS, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now let's get into this training. Okay, so what we're all here for today. Let me see, Genius Scan is in your app store. Yes, it is in your app store. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't keep up with questions in the chat. I'm gonna have folks help me with that. And I'm also trying to save some questions, some time at the end for questions. I do ask that no specific questions around tenants or your properties. If you have specific questions, please call us or email us. But we are going to have time at the end for general questions, okay? So I want to get into this training if there's nothing that I need to get into beforehand. Not hearing anything. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit, right? What is Rent Help MN? And Beth did a good job in framing it as a program that's here to assist folks and how much rent it can help with, you know, that timeline, possibly 15 months with 12 months utilities. But what I'd like to do is share my screen a little bit. Make sure I have it pulled up here. I do, okay. So we can have some visuals here, okay. Share. Okay, so everyone should be seeing the home page for Rent Help MN. So when you log on, this is what you'll see. In the corner, you'll see something that says apply. Unfortunately, right now that says, I gotta move my screen, it says learn more. Where you see the learn more in the top right corner, that's where you actually apply for this program. Both landlords and tenants will start at this home screen and hit that button. But before you get to that button, if there's anything that you're missing, and this is very important because they have a resource tab right here that has templates for any documents that you may be missing, either on the landlord side or on the tenant side. There's a couple of things a landlord's gonna need, specifically 3 things, and there's gonna be 5 to 6 things that a tenant's gonna need. So if there's missing any of those items, like a rent ledger, income documentation, they have that in this area. So landlords, please check that out. For time's sake, I'm not gonna go in there. But please check out this resource tab if you are missing or your tenants are missing any documents. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and we are actually going to move into the training portion of this. Now, I do advise you landlords, this is going to get technical. This is going to get technical. This is why we're here today. So I'd say if you haven't looked at this system, if you don't have any experience with this system, I would advise you to take notes. I really would. Just, and this is being recorded. We can send this out, but for me, sometimes it's good just to jot down a few things, right? So in sharing again here, let's get into the Rent Help MN training. Okay, so once you go from the home page, you will click in the top right corner where it says apply. This is the screen that will come up. Once this screen comes up, you have a tenant application here, but you also have a landlord registration here. Now, this should actually be owners/landlords, okay? Because what would happen is as a owner or a landlord with authorization to register this property, this company, right? You would click on here, okay? And it will begin a registration process. Now, once again, this is for the owner or a landlord who has authorization to start this process. Okay, so for this fictitious owner, we are going to call him Kit, or I guess it could be a her. Call them Kit Rogers. All right, and Kit needs the email. Kit1@gmail. Okay, then we have to do it again. I see someone trying to enter. Can someone let them in for me, please? Thank you. Okay, so then password. Now, the thing about the password, folks, is it has to be a minimum of 15 characters. 15 characters, and you want to use caps, alternative characters, etc. Right? So for this password, we're going to say, I want my money. Money sign, money sign, money sign. Let's see if that works. All right. Okay. And then a phone number. For this property owner, their phone number is 763-612-7. Oh. Now, every time someone tries to join, it stops what I'm doing. So I do apologize, folks. 763-9119. Okay, you confirm phone number. You confirm, you agree to the terms. So just going back up, it's a pretty straightforward term. Kit Rogers is the owner, okay, or authorized representative. Pretty simple email, a password with 15 characters minimum, and their phone number. You would register. What would happen is once we hit this registration button, an email would be sent to whatever email is here. So it'd go to Kit Rogers with a link. That link would take us back to this page. But for training purposes, it just directs us purposely. So folks, once you register your property, look for the email that will link you to your account. And now you're done. Your property is registered. I'm sorry, your property is not registered. Your account is registered. As an owner, you have an account with Rent Help Minnesota now. But the first step once you have an account is to add your property or your properties if you have several. Today, we're just going to add one for simplicity's sake, right? But if you have several, you could either start here in the right top-hand corner and it turns green as you go over it, or right here in the middle. Either button works and they both do the same thing. So we're just going to start an application. And it's just kind of a 4-step process as you see, where you'll talk about your properties and your related companies. So it's going to talk about property and company information. We're going to talk about payment information or how your payments are made. It's going to talk about inviting users. Now, users are folks who are going to have access to this account. We have the account registered now, but we may want to have our landlords. If it's a mom and pop shop or small operation, maybe someone who has authorization like our children or that friend or that partner that needs to see this account. So anyone that needs access to this account, this is the point where you would invite them. They're called users. Now, the reason I'm spending some time on this is because my advice is to invite at least one user. Even if it's just you have one property, or if you have a duplex or fourplex, what have you, and you do everything on your own, still find one person to invite. So if anything ever goes wrong with your account, your access, you have that backdoor access or someone else that can get in and check up on the status of your tenant applications and things of that nature. Now, because I had a question about this before, they wanted to know what would a user have access to. So they will be able to see the status of a tenant's application. They'll have access to the property information. So this is very important. Sometimes our property information is our home address, especially if it's a smaller operation and we set up our business that way. So what they're saying is that this person with access to your account will have access to whatever information is on your W-9, which we're going to talk about, which for some of us may be our home address, right? So it's very important that we know that a user is going to have access to sensitive information on this account. The other thing they'll be to do is accept payments. There will be a tab on here that talks about accepting payments, and they will have access to that as well. So those are users, okay? Now, let's get into this, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this fictitious user so we can see it in the system or in the portal. And then after I set this up, I'm going to add one user, and then we'll talk about the tenant application and then open this up for questions. All right. So Kit Rogers is the owner, and we are going to add his first property. He has 2, just my apartments, and he calls it Uno. All right. I'm going to just be typing here, folks. What I think I'm going to do, it's okay. There we go. Okay. Just muted a few things. Sorry. And please mute yourself unless you have a question to ask. All right. So just one purpose. Uno, 1, 2, 3. Call it 123 Main Street. And we are saying this is in New Hope. Property state, Minnesota. The zip code was 55427. All right, and the county is Hennepin. Now, this is the point where we are either, a property owner or property manager. If we're a property owner, it's going to ask us in first person, The only difference is if we're a property manager, it's asking who owns the property, right? But it's the same information, right? So sticking with property owner, I own this property. I'm Kit Rogers, right? I'm registering my property right now. This is my first one, right? And as a property, I have a company name, right? That coincides with my EIN. I'm gonna admit somebody so I can keep typing, okay? That coincides with my EIN, right? So this property owner's address, like I was saying before, sorry, property owner's company name is all, getting ahead of myself. All my properties, what's going on here? There you go. LLC. All right. And then it's gonna ask for a phone number, 612-772. Let's just say 7777, somewhere in there. There we go. Okay. And it automatically populates the owner's name. Now, it says the property owner's company address as it appears on your W-9. Now, this is very important, folks. This is very important that the address you put in here as your company address coincides with your W-9, which they're going to ask you to upload later. And it's important because this is the only address where they'll send payments. Property owners and landlords, this is the only address they're going to send payments. So if this address that you put right here that you submit does not coincide with the W-9, which you have to upload, it's going to cause an issue. And you're going to have to get in touch with a place like Project Hope and then wait for an email to get back to you. We're going to have to change some things. It's a lot of work because it's coding, it's programming. People are going to have to go in there and change some things. So please, I can't say that enough. Landlords have had issues with it. Make sure that the address when you register this first property, the property address coincides with your W-9. I'm sorry, company address, excuse me. Your company address coincides with your W-9. Okay, so for the company address, which I was talking about before, it's 456 Trust Lane. And as you see, what it does is starts looking for addresses that coincide. Now, as this is a fictitious address, it's going to keep looking. But if this was a real address, it would most likely come up. Okay, hold on 1 second here. Okay, I have landlords calling me as I'm doing this training. I do apologize. Okay. Okay, so as we go through this, once again, we're at Trust Lane. We are going to tab over. The city is Apple Valley, Minnesota, zip code Apple Valley 55124. Okay, so once again, for time's sake, and so we can answer some direct questions, we would usually put in maybe a property manager's address if it's a bigger property. If you have several properties, if you have multiple properties, you have a portfolio of properties, most likely you have a property manager. Now, for time's sake, I'm just going to talk about this for a second, but I'm not going to input anything, right? So what you would do is you would just put in your property manager's company name. Now, this is their business information, still need a little information from them, correct? Right? Okay, so their company name, their phone number, their first and last name of whatever company representative you're dealing with, their address, business address, city, zip code, and then of course the state, and that would be it. Property manager's information, that's all you need from your property manager, right? But let's say this is a mom and pop shop because I put in my home address in Apple Valley. So most likely this is a smaller operation. I manage these properties on my own. When I set up my all my properties LLC a few years ago, you know, I had to use my home address. You can't use PO boxes to set up businesses, right? So I use my home address. So we're not going to put any property information in there right now because I manage this myself. So now it asks, are you sure? Now this is important, landlords. It's asking, are you sure? Because once again, if you hit this button, you cannot go back. That's one of the things about this system. Once you register your account and then you set up your first property or multiple properties, you cannot go back and change anything. Okay, but we know we did this one correctly, so it's telling us that we're to the second part of this application where we are talking about money, payments. How are payments going to be made? So select the program. It is a rental assistance program, emergency rental assistance. I see another admit. Let me admit them. All right. And it's asking which company will receive the funds and the 1099 from us, meaning what address once again, right? Okay, but we only have one company name in here, All My Properties LLC. Okay, so then we'd go down here and we'd have our tax ID, 3, we say 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we have our tax ID in there. And then right here, if you do not have a W-9 within the last year, they're only good for 1 year, right? So if you don't have a W-9 within the last year, you can download one right here, fill it out, maybe use a Scan Genius, maybe use your own scanner, and then upload that back so you have that document. And you would upload it right here. For the purposes of this training, I have just your, what are we looking for? There's sample W-9. So then we'd have that form uploaded. Takes a second. Okay, now it shows that form. If it's the wrong form, you could trash it, start over, but we know that's the correct form. And then it says select a payment method. Landlords, property owners, you can select a check. Minnesota Housing and Finance, they've been very specific that they prefer automated payments. They've just been very direct with that. They will send a check to you. There's no timeline on that. But for the purposes of this training, we are going to talk about sending an automated payment, right? So we're not going to talk about checks today. It's pretty straightforward. If you want a check, you have an address down, they will send you a hard check, but they cannot give you a time. We cannot give you any timelines on that because we do not know. They will not tell us. But for this training, we are going to talk about an automated payment, right? So the first thing you do is set up your account. Is going to a checking, a savings account. For us, it's checking. Kit wants us in checking. We have a routing number here. And then we have to confirm it. Of course, we have our account number now we need to put in. And then we will confirm that as well. Okay, now what it's asking for is an ACH form that needs to be filled out, which you can click here, or you could have went into the resource tab and printed it out from there, but you can click here where it'll open up a form and you can fill it out and then print that out. But they are asking you to have an electronic copy of a filled out ACH form. So if you do not have one with your company, you can click on here and get that form, get it printed out, scan back in, and you would upload it here. Or you could do a voided check. So for the purposes of this training, I am just going to do a voided check. Right? I don't want to fill this out. I'd rather just void a check, take a picture of it, and now I have that here. So I'm using a voided check, right? So now we have all the information that they require. Address, we have our payment method, we have our routing information, our account numbers, and we have that voided check so they can verify our accounting and routing information. Oh, excuse me. They do not match. I'm sorry, I did something wrong here, which is good because they confirm it. So
Rich, you have an extra 2 in your routing number, second time.
There we go. Yep, I just saw that. Yes, thank you. All right, so there we go. All right, so inviting users. Now, remember when we started this off, I was talking about have at least one user. If you're the only person on this property, I understand, but please have at least one backup user. So if anything happens to go wrong with your account, not saying it will, but if anything happens with your access, it's nice to have another way to get into your account to check the status of your applications. So you would go here and you would check a user. Pretty straightforward. The user needs an email because they're going to be invited. All right. So for this, I'm actually going to invite that individual right there. It's going to send an invitation. Now, what that means is the email I just submitted, once I hit send, it's going to send that email to the individual with a link that will now give them access to this account. When they click on that link, they will be to set up an account and they will have access, right? They will literally be to go in and see everything you see. That is the access of a user. All right, so with that being said, we are going to say the user's name, using my own so we can get through this. And I can't remember what I did for a phone number. Okay, and then it puts the email in there for me already. And it asks me, is this individual a property owner, maybe a co-owner, a partner, or the property manager? It's Maria, or property manager. For this role, Richard is a property, well, I'm sorry. For this role, we're gonna say Richard is a co-owner, which, you know, as far as access goes, it doesn't make much of a difference, folks. It doesn't make much difference. They will still have the same accesses, that's what I'm saying. All right, now, just to move through this, we are going to save and continue. And it says that your property has been created, right? After you're done, you will be redirected to your home page, right? And to review your property information. They want you to make sure it's correct, right? All right, so you go. Let me move this down so I can see the screen. And everyone should be seeing our property, right? So starting from the left side, you have your property ID. If you have any questions about your property or anything went wrong or you need to change anything, you will reference it by this property ID, okay? Oh, something went a little haywire there. All right. All right, so you'll register by this property ID. We have the property name, just my apartments. Number 1, we could have a number 2, we could have a number 3, we could have a number 77, right? Property address, property owner with address that coincides with W9, and then property manager. If there was a property manager, this would be a different address. But since Kent is a mom and pop shop, Kent, we're just starting off, you know, we only own a duplex. Well, then we are going to manage these properties, so we don't need a property management company doing that on our behalf, right? Okay, and then if we had apps pending, meaning tenants that applied for this program, we would be to see that status here, along with an update, okay? Now, to see the update, we would go to this tab right here. I'm not going to click on that because there's nothing in there right now. We don't have any applications, but we'd be to see the apps here, but then click on it here to get a status update, meaning where are they at along this process of being approved for rental assistance. So, of course, you folks can receive your checks. But what we are going to do is we are going to start a tenant application. Okay, so now we actually will click on there. Once again, it's blank, not much to see. But if we wanted to start an application for our tenants, right? This is the part where we want to get consent though, folks. You want to let your tenant know that you're doing it on their behalf, because the only way to send a message to the tenant, letting them know that this process is started, is by email. So if we don't let them know the email is coming, we shouldn't assume that they're going to check their email to know that an application has been started on their behalf. Okay, let me admit Marie again. There we go. That an application has been started on their behalf. So please get consent from your tenants, meaning just let them know that you're starting an application on their behalf. It's a really straightforward process, right? So the first part of it would be selecting the property. Now, if you had multiple properties, if we had just my apartments 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, they would be listed there. But right now we just have our one property. So you select that property, select the program, which is COVID-19 emergency rental assistance. There's County Pacific here, but for this training, we're just going to do this top one. And then then a list comes up where we just have to fill in the information. Now, for our user, their name is just getting, hyphenated, just getting by. And their email is just getting by at gmail.com. Head of household phone number 651-222-333. Okay. And then the building address, which coincides. What is it? Sorry, I'm gonna look back for it. All right, he lives at property 1, so we'll say 1, 2, 3 Main Street. And as you see, once again, addresses start popping up. If your address was in there, this is a test portal, but if your address was already in, it would come up and all you'd have to do is drop down and click on it. All right. So building unit, you would put the tenant unit. This really doesn't matter for this. We're going to say 203. Building city. You know, it's in New Hope. Building state is in Minnesota. And the zip code, I think, was 55427 for New Hope. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. And Hennepin is our county. Okay, now this is a part where I want to spend just a couple of minutes on. This is where we put what is owed. And as you see, it goes all the way back to April 2020, and then it automatically populates 3 months forward. Now, there's been some questions. There's been some questions about how do we apply for future rent payments? It automatically puts it on here for you. So as you see, it already has it till September. So when you're applying for the late rent, make sure you apply all the way through to whatever months that you know the tenant will need, right? Okay, so let's just, for the sake of this, we are in June. Let's say that this tenant was late for May. The rent is $900 a month, right? And if we look up here, the next box would be amount paid by the tenant. Let's say that's 0. And then this is going to be our late fees here, which we'll see as our late fees due. Make sure we put those in. Any late fees or payments due, you need to put on this rent ledger. If you not put them here, the state will not reimburse you. Okay, so make sure you put all total rent due, including late payments here. So for this place, it's going to be a $40 late payment, and then it will total it for you, which lets you know that this tenant so far owes $940. And let's just go through and do the same thing throughout. It seems pretty consistent since about May of 2020. This tenant has been struggling and unable to pay anything towards their rent. So we're just going to go ahead and help them by starting the future rent payments, which they've already told us they will need. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, I did something wrong here. Let me catch that. Okay, so we won't have any late payments, excuse me, because it hasn't happened yet, right? So we will only have the total month's rent for future payments. I got ahead of myself. I do apologize. All right. All right. So for May and June, we would have our late payments, but then for the rest of the months when we're talking about the future rent owed, there would only be the rental. I mean, the rental portion. Ooh, I don't know what happened there. Okay, so some problems with adding, but you get the point that it adds it up for you. The terms and agreements, you want to read through, definitely want to do. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's pretty much asking for your consent, and then you sign it below is that you are okay with applying for this program. Now, this is a toggle button. It's not going to move until you sign your name, so you don't have to click on or anything like that. Just come down here and you would sign your name, right? And then it's automatically going to move to green once it approves your signature as a person authorized to start this application, right? And that is pretty much it, folks. It's a simple one-page process. And what this is going to do, it is going to push this application via email to your tenant, and then they will see it. The application has been created now. It is being emailed to the tenant. And then once they get a chance, let me see here. Okay. Oh, hold on. It's telling us something is not right. So that's another thing. If it doesn't work, it's telling us something is wrong. And I already know actually what it is. It wasn't adding up the account info here. So let me change this. Yeah, somehow it's not populating the rent amount. But this is the demo. This isn't the real account here. So it is okay if it's not doing that, because in the real account, what you do is you click OK. It's going to send an email to them, and then they would have to pick up the part of their application and complete it. Now, this is an important, folks. This is an important part, ladies and gentlemen. you cannot upload any documentations on their behalf, when we initially started this program, there was a lot of questions around making it easier for the tenants. So allowing the landlord to upload that rent ledger, right? And the rental agreement on the tenant's behalf. But how this program works, it is a tenant-based program, meaning that all documentation has to come from the tenant, unfortunately. Meaning that one pager that you started on your tenant's behalf, you did get it started. Let me work into the waiting room. Okay, let me include someone, sorry. You did get the process started. However, they will have to complete it by uploading all the documentation. So they will still need that documentation from you. All right, they will still need that documentation from you to complete the application or successfully complete that application. All right, now let me see here. I want to unshare my screen. We can see each other a little bit here. All right, now, if I can, there's a couple things I omitted just for time's sake, and I wanted to have a good 30 minutes for questions. I would like to get into questions because I see a lot of people on this call and we're here for a reason, right? So that is the training. It's really a 3-step process, right? You register as an owner or an authorized landlord. You set up your properties where you invite users, people who have access to the account, working on your behalf most likely, and then you will start the tenant application. We are asking to have it not only email, but eventually text to the tenant as well. We have already asked that question. The folks who are the programmers for Rent Help MN are looking into adding that. They're not sure if they can do it, but as of now, the only way you can only start, the only way you can start a tenant application is via email to the tenant. And with that, I am going to open it up for questions. I don't know what the chat looks like. I see a lot in the chat. I don't know if someone's been monitored for me and they want to kind of start at the beginning here. Yes, there's a lot in the chat. So maybe we start there.
So Rich, a common question is when they register tenants through the landlord's login, then the tenants are having problems logging in. And and a second piece to that is the transparency piece. The landlords are not able to see the applications of their residents.
So the first part is that there's some difficulties. So if there's some difficulties with your tenants logging on, I would tell them to have them call us and see what's going on. It could be a tech issue. It could be just some glitches, and it could be them not understanding the application. It could be several things. I've had some success with it, and I know other folks that I've worked with have as well. So I think that's kind of, yes, I think that's the issue where you'd have to call us and we'd have to look at the tenant to see what's going on with them specifically. But overall, I haven't heard that complaint that it doesn't work. I do know when you push an application to a tenant and they click on there and start that process, that they should be successfully completed. So give us a call. Have them give us a call.
And JW has indicated when the landlord fills out the property address, the website just keeps spinning.
Yes. So when you get that spinning thing, right, it's having a problem. Hold on. Beth, ask that question for me one more time, because that can happen 2 ways. Say it one more time. When the landlord puts in their property address?
Correct.
Okay, so when they put in their property, yep, it'll just keep spinning. Yep. So what it's saying is that there's a property that's registered similar to that property. And I see Jamila, your hands up, so I got you next. Okay. All right. So what's happening is the system has this huge database and it doesn't want to duplicate records. So whenever there's a record that's similar to another property address, it won't let you put it in, because what it's wanted you to do is look through the drop down to see if your property's already in there, right? Now, if on the tenant side, obviously they're looking for the property that was already registered for the landlord. If it's a landlord, maybe there's another landlord or property owner that registers a similar property. So if you're getting that spinning and it won't let you register your property, let us know. And I'm actually going to, Beth, if I'm mistaken, the landlord portal we can give the landlords that and they can contact Rent Help MN directly, right? The landlord assistance line. Is that still active?
Right. So there's a designated email address for landlords to get to Minnesota Housing.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to put in the chat because I want them to have that access. Obviously, if there's any questions and they'd like some assistance, they can definitely call on us. But I feel like questions like these, especially issues where you can't register properties, you send an email with your property address on it, and they'll respond with about 24 hours. They've been pretty good about responding so far.
In the chat, it's looking like people have had the experience where people haven't gotten a response to landlords@renthelpmn.org. Is that for those of you who are saying that they haven't responded to that email? Is that the email address you're using? I'm seeing heads.
Could I just pop in and say something right quick in regards to that?
Go ahead, Jamelia.
In regards to me helping the tenant side, I have been told that, they should contact the tenants who I'm in contact with, whether I assisted them with the application or not, should get their ID attached to my field partner ID. Now, should the landlords call the 211 number and try to get attached with us as well, or no?
Yes, well, yes, and we can definitely talk about that. When the landlords call, that's one of the things I talk about with them, about how to begin assisting them. Yep. And what she's referring to, landlords, is that owners, landlords, is in order to assist your tenants, we have to be a field partner of theirs, meaning we have to be authorized to assist them. So we have to get some authorization from someone involved in this, so then we can check up on it. And we can't offer that assistance because we have a different email that we use to get in touch with folks. Now, I want to get back to that question about that landlord email not working. If landlords are using that landlords@renthelp.org and you're not getting a response, you should also contact us and let us know, because that's a problem, right? That's a problem. You guys should be getting a response. And if you're not, we need to check into that. All right. So once again, give us a call. We will handle that. We can definitely give them a number email on your behalf and let them know that this system is not working. They need to do better. Next question. How do we contact you? I know I put it in the chat up above. We can put it in there again.
I just put it down.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Beth. Okay.
I did see an email this morning from Minnesota Housing, and they have hired 2 full-time people to assist the field partners in assisting landlords and tenants. Those 2 people will start on June 9th. So I am hoping that response rates to questions will improve once they get hired up on June 9th. And I think some of these field partners are also, interviewing and hiring people to serve as navigators. So it's been launched, but people are building the plane as we're flying it.
Yes, definitely. So we have more questions in the chat, Beth, that should address. I'm seeing them coming here.
Yeah.
Just not sure where you're at.
I'm going to start on the bottom here and go up. Somebody asked, is Project Hope Hennepin specific? Rent Help MN is a statewide program. Our group of 13 organizations is focusing on Hennepin properties, but we can always connect people if it's not the right match. And then BSOP asks, we entered properties into the portfolio, and when we went back into the system, some of our property addresses changed. We are in Anoka County and addresses changed to St. Paul and Minneapolis addresses.
Yes. Yeah, there's been some Apple Valley stuff that's showing St. Paul as well, right? Which is, it's kind of like a GPS thing, and I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but I have seen that before. They said it wasn't supposed to be a problem because, they do have the W-9s and the addresses you put in. So that's not supposed to be an issue. The issue I've been seeing with that, though, is then when tenants go to look for the property, it's not coming up because you're supposed to put in St. Paul. So my advice to that is if you want to send an email to the landlord's line, you definitely can and ask them about that. But what I would say as far as the tenants part, when they're applying and they're looking for your property, and that database is going to drop down when the tenants are applying. You want to make sure they look it up by the number and the street, right? Start there, not the property name, not the zip code, nowhere else, the numbers and the street. Okay, this is kind of a backdoor way to find the property. And then let the timer circle and populate, and then have them look at the drop down for your property. Because once you've registered, and then once you set up your property, you know, having it in the polls, that address, they need to find it exactly under that address, right? If it's south, it needs to say south. If it's east, it needs to say east. So the best way for them to do that is to start typing in the street numbers and then the name, and to slowly start see what's coming up and use the drop down if they can. That's why it's so important that we have these landlord informational sessions. We really need to get the landlord's information in the system, because it makes it easier for the tenant to find the information if it's already in there. Okay.
Richard, this might be related. Daisy indicates the other issue she noticed was properties added to our account, which we don't manage, along with some of our properties added to the wrong owner. So have you experienced that?
I have not seen that. I have not seen that person. So what she's saying is that she's seeing properties on her account that they didn't register.
And properties that they registered are getting attached to a different owner.
A different owner.
Yes, we have that issue too.
Yeah, that. I would love to see a screenshot of that. I would love if you could. Let's. All right, I'm putting my thinking that's the right email. All right, I'm putting my email in the chat. The two folks that chimed in and said they're seeing that, if you could just take a screenshot of that and send that to me. I'd love to talk about it. If you're okay, I would love to talk about it a little more, and I'd look into that for you. I will, because we definitely don't want that. And that should be an easy fix, because once again, all of your properties are tied with the property ID along the left corner. So anything tied to your account, they should be looking at the left column number. So if something's not adding up, they should be able to look at that in their backdoor way and fix that. All right.
Now, Jennifer had a question about the backup users, that it didn't work for her.
Yes.
Those folks get an email, but when they click on the email, they can't see the applications. So
now I will say it helps to use Chrome. I was told if you don't use Chrome, it will not work. So if they're doing it on their phone, especially an Apple, which is Safari, or if you're using say an Apple product that's Safari, use Chrome. I know that's one problem with folks having access to applications. If they're simply logging on, they're using Chrome and they're clicking on it and it's not working, there's a glitch. And once again, you can use that email, or you can contact us and we can get in touch with them for you. But that link should be working for users. Yes.
there were some questions about payment methods, and I think the clarification is Hennepin County is sending checks and not ACH. So if your resident applied through the Hennepin Sprint that was at the end of March, that won't be ACH. That'll be a check in the mail. But if your application is going through Minnesota Housing through the Rent Help MN, you have the option of ACH.
Yes, and you do have the option, and I'm not, there's no knock on checks. All I was saying is that when we asked Minnesota Housing about this and how this checks would roll out in the timeline, they said that they just weren't sure with mail and trying to print out checks. It just would be easier for them if they could do as much electronically as possible. So they pleaded with folks to do the ACH way of the voided check, so they can send electronic payments routed to you versus having to type in, print off, package, and then snail mail a check to an address. It just seems a lot more. Okay, I'm
Dianessa
how to remove it.
J Bond have a similar question or problem with the software. I've done several with my residents and they are not on my dashboard. And I think the same issue is we know that tenants have applied, but they're not showing up under my applicants.
Yeah, sometimes that does happen. Once again, it's that situation where they're looking for the address, and as that drop down, they may have just clicked right by it because, hey, I live here, I know my address, right? But it may not coincide with the addresses on their lease. And I mean, it could be something as small as just forgetting the east and west, or putting the east before the street instead of behind it. The database is just that. It's a database, and it's just looking for something that looks exactly like something else. So if the tenants are not putting the information in correctly, and that's where this partnership comes in, owners and landlords, where it's good to make sure that that tenant has maybe a copy of their lease, because most of our leases will have the address on the top corner. So all they have to do is copy it down, right? So you want to make sure it coincides, because if it doesn't coincide, it's not going to make it to your tenant portal so you can track the status of it. However, if they're residents of your property and they're not showing up on your tenant portal and you would like them added to your tenant portal, once again, that's something you can email at landlords@renthelpmn.org. And if that is not working, you can get in touch with Project Hope, and we can help get those tenants or those tenant applications added to your portal so you can monitor their status. I'm sorry. Okay.
There've been some questions about both the landlord information and the tenant information. Can changes be made after the information has been entered?
Yes, but you'd have to get in touch with them directly. And I know we've been saying this a lot, folks, and I'm so sorry. They don't have a phone number, and they have no office hours, or there's no drop-in locations, so unfortunately, the only access we have to the folks that are administering this program is through that one email, that landlord's email, right? However, if you would like some assistance and you'd like to talk about it, and maybe we can get this done a little quicker, get in touch with us. That's one of the things I have been successful about, and why we've been purposeful about having these sessions with folks and really engaging landlords. We have had some success. We've had success working with landlords, getting their properties registered, getting their tenant applications up, and getting folks paid, right? So if you're having troubles and you'd like some help, I can't say it enough. Get in touch with Project Hope. We are here to help.
And Rich, do you want to say something on the tenant end of things about the difference between a submitted application and not submitted? So that it's a lot easier
say that one more time.
It's a lot easier to fix information or add information if you haven't hit the submit button. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. So you're saying like they're in the process of filling it out, but they just don't submit it. They keep it open. Is that that was the question? That they just don't complete it, that they kind of...
Yeah, I think one of the messages that they're trying to get across is, if you submit an application that might be missing something, those are the applications that are going to take a long time to process with the back and forth. It's a more efficient application process to make sure that you have all of your information in there correctly before you hit the submit button.
Definitely. Yes, definitely. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes. And the reason I was asking for a little clarity around that is the application will also time out, and it starts doing some glitches if you leave it open too long. It doesn't say that, but I found that if you leave the application open like overnight and come back, there's going to be some glitches. And I think that's more attributed to the break in your Wi-Fi connection, maybe, but yeah, so don't leave an application sitting too long. But to your point, yes, a completed application, meaning you have all your documents uploaded correctly and all your information correctly, is so much easier than an incorrect document, and let's just hurry up and get it in. This program is running to December. One of the bigger housing providers that I'm working with, they have a great approach. They are being purposeful about waiting a month or two to get this process started. They're getting all their ducks in a row. They're getting all their properties up, then they're getting all their users in place so the people have access to those. They're making sure they have the addresses right. They're making sure they have those lease agreements sent out, those rent ledgers, which folks will need. They're gonna need a rent ledger because they need to know how much rent do we owe, right? So they're getting those rent ledgers ready for all their tenants, and then they're gonna apply once they have everything together. So there's no need to rush and get this done incorrectly, because it's just going to take more time. Because once again, we've already explained that there's only one way to get in touch with them. And it sounds like landlords already have an issue with that system that's bottlenecked. So we don't want to add to it with things that we can fix on the front end. So please, yes, once again, please promote to your tenants to get the application done successfully the first time. All right, so we want to keep going, Beth?
There's a question from Jamila, and it comes up in a number of different ways. If a tenant is no longer residing in the property, can the landlord still be made whole for that back rent? And the answer has consistently been no, that these funds were passed by the federal Congress as a housing stability program. There are other programs, and we wouldn't have the details on that for mortgage holders and property owners and business, but it isn't Rent Help MN. And even more specifically, if somebody is a current renter at the time of application, but by the time the application gets processed and the award is there, if they are not a current tenant, Minnesota Housing won't submit that check to the landlord.
That is correct, Beth. Thank you. Yes, if this is a program that is fostered in keeping people housed, right? So if they're no longer housed, this program will not pay the bill. So thank you, Beth. That is absolutely correct.
So are there any programs that are there any programs I can refer this landlord to? He contacted me on the 211, on the Vonage app, and he's extremely frustrated because he housed this tenant for the past year. The tenant lost the job, they didn't pay their rent, and now they've moved out of state, and the landlord said he basically had to like remodel the whole unit, that there was bugs, and I don't know, he's frustrated. And I just felt like I wanted to give him something, because he felt like, the government forced him to keep this tenant during COVID, right? And he's not receiving any rent, and now he can't even get the rent paid now, even once the tenant is gone, and once the tenant had previously lived there.
So part of that is a COVID issue, and part of it is not. Housing court has never been, or the eviction process has never been about collecting the money. That's conciliation court or small claims court. Okay. Housing court is about who has the right to that property. So that landlord would still have the right to go to conciliation court and get a judgment for that dollar amount. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to collect the money. But that is the process. And at any time, COVID or not, landlords can't go to housing court to collect rent from somebody that's no longer a tenant.
They can or they cannot?
They cannot.
They cannot. So if they have moved out, then that's it, basically.
It's conciliation court and not housing court. It's not the eviction process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will let him know. Thank you guys for answering that. He was just extremely frustrated. Like, I can't get any help from anybody from the state. And, I wasn't making him like I can do anything, but I was like, well, let me talk to someone and see, if there's any help for you.
Yeah. Right. And I hear what you're saying, Jamila. You're asking, what resources out there as well. Let me think on that. Because once they move on, it becomes an incredible tough process. And I hear what Beth's saying. Beth's saying the natural recourse is going to civil court and getting a judgment. Okay. But we have about 9 minutes left. I just want to make sure we try to get as many questions as possible. Do we want to, but give me a chance to think about that, Jamila. Maybe I can think of some resources for the landlord as well as.
I haven't looked at it. I haven't had to look at it from that side of things, because we're helping the tenants. But once he called me and gave me that scenario, I was like, man, a lot of landlords could be in that same situation. A lot of property management companies could be in the same situation where people just live in there for, the past year, not having to pay their rent because they can't evict them. And they move out and then the landlord doesn't get their
money. Correct. I hear you. Well, thank you so much for bringing that up, because you're absolutely right. There was a direct message sent to me from Maya. Maya, I wrote it down so I forget. I'm trying to find it here. Remove tenant. How to remove a tenant info. Maya, I think you're asking how to remove tenant info from the landlord portal. If that's your question, once you have the tenant information, you just can't delete it. You have to send that email and just let them know that you want to have that tenant application pulled out. And then what you would do with that. Hold on one second here. So again. I need. I'm sorry, mother lines in the background is beeping. So what you would do is you just send email, let them know, and remember, use that ID, that application ID. There's going to be a ID number for each application in your portal on the left-hand side that coincides with that application. Use the ID number. You don't even have to say their name. Just say this ID number we need removed, and they will take them off, and they'll send you an email saying that this person has been removed from your landlord portal, and that should be it. All right.
Mike asked a question, and there's two different variations of this question, and it's common. Mike is asking, what about tenants that don't apply and they're waiting out the moratorium and they're eligible for the funds, but they're not submitting the application? We are offering mediation services. That's something that you can try, and it's no charge for the landlord to see if there might be a way of bridging that and finding out what the obstacles might be. It's not always going to work. Sometimes it's going to help, but sometimes it's not going to help. There is another program that's launching on Wednesday for landlords, where landlords are responsible for filling out the application. It's called Zero Balance, and it's going to be a metro area program. I think there are 5 or 6 different metro counties that are working together on that, called Zero Balance. And then the flip side of that question is we have tenants who submit an application, but the landlord won't provide the W-9. And unlike CHAP, with this program, Minnesota Housing will cut a check directly to the tenant if they have a landlord that's not willing to provide a W-9.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Okay, do we have any other questions?
Rich, when are you going to do this again?
That's right. We were talking about that this morning. I want to do it July 1st. I'd like to just do it around the 1st of the month. Seems like a good date. What do you think? July 1st, probably the same. I sent the email. I didn't get confirmation from anyone, but I'd like to do this again July 1st at 1 o'clock at this time again. So most likely around the 1st of the month every month.
Okay. There will be a lot of updates at that point because the legislature will have made their plans with the moratorium off-ramp. June 30th is the last day of the CDC moratorium, and the courts will have started that process of what their procedures are going to be.
Yes, and thank you for saying that, Beth, because how we will have it roll out in the months to come is we won't obviously won't have to go through the training again, but I will probably have a brief training at the end of every Project Hope owner landlord meeting, just so that information is there for possibly new hires or just refreshers. But we'll always start off with introductions and then legislative updates. So for folks that are here just for that, and maybe the network and just see what's happening in Red Hemp, Minnesota, you can get that information before we get into the technical side, right? So it will be worth your time, maybe logging on monthly just to see what's changed, see what's going on. All right, about 4 minutes left. I'm still lost on the chat though. Beth, can you help me out? Is there any other folks that we're missing?
Jennifer from Common Bond had a lot of good questions. Jennifer, do you want to chime in if we've missed some of them?
Yeah, see her. Okay.
Oh, sorry if I'm dominating the chat.
No, they're good questions.
I think we continue to have a lot of technical issues where we have 88 properties registered under Common Bond, and each of our property managers, I've signed them up as a contact, but none of them can see the applications. I've submitted, and the property managers have submitted, probably between us, more than 50 emails to the landlord's email and haven't gotten a single response. And it would be really helpful if, I understand that there are technical glitches, it would be very helpful if Rent Help Minnesota would send out some communication acknowledging that and giving us some sense of what to do in the meantime, or some communication to give to our residents, because otherwise we're just operating in the dark.
So navigators have access to Minnesota housing staff, and landlords don't have the same kind of access. Rich, would you be willing to set up a one-on-one with Minnesota Housing and Jennifer? and
You
troubleshoot
just
that.
you just read my mind. So what I was
Oh
gonna
my
say,
gosh.
Jennifer, do you have my email in the chat there? Did you see it?
Yes, I wrote it down.
Okay, I can't take any calls because it's crazy today, so I'm not pushing people to call me. Just send me an email, just remind me, and I'm gonna see your email anyways. That's Jennifer from Common Bond, and you and I are gonna connect. All right, I'm gonna get some detail, so I can have a little better understanding of this, and then I'm gonna see if I can get this moving for you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're very welcome. Okay, so we'll connect offline. Just make sure you send me that email, and I'll definitely get to you. Okay. Cool.
Great.
All right, thanks, Jennifer. All right,
And
about a minute left. I'm sorry, Beth.
yeah, I'll just say that landlords, if you want to ever provide an afternoon for your residents where they can stop down and hop on a Zoom that you might help them with, we can have navigators by appointment who will help people as they troubleshoot the application process. And we're planning on moving into an area where we're going to do what's called pop-ups. So we'll send a navigator out to an apartment building if there's a designated day that the landlord has made available or property manager has made available, where property manager will need to be available to provide information that they have. And then the tenants can stop down and get some help with their application. But
I
overall,
appreciate you saying, Beth. Thank you.
yeah, we did this with CHAP, and overall our experience was landlords and tenants who work together on the application have a much better experience with it. And the application moves much faster if both of them are providing the same information. Question.
Well, thank you so much, Beth.
Beth and Rich and everybody in the room. Also in our community of navigators, maybe you mentioned it in the beginning, but I was late to the meeting. We also provide translation, and we can help with navigation in several different languages. And Beth, if you would kind of chime in and say what languages those are.
It's a long list and I can't always remember it, but I know Somali, Oromo, Spanish, and different dialects, West African dialects.
And also Hmong. Hmong, and do we have Vietnamese also?
No.
Through CAPI, and that's just now getting put in place. And I don't know if it's on the phone line right now, if you can press a number for Hmong, but that capacity is just coming in this week, I think. And Ruth, I don't know.
But I was imagining in that kind of group appointment, landlords might also offer that language, translation or navigation help as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when you ask for that appointment, keep that in mind.
What language they need? Yes, they need help with. They're very good. Very good. Thank you, Joanna.
And
Thank
if
you,
you go
Joanna.
to,
Well, I know we're at time.
okay.
I know we're at time, so just respectful of this time. If you have to jump off, that's fine. But I want to have folks kind of finish their thoughts. But if you have to jump off, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be doing this again on the 1st. We'll be doing this on the 1st at 1 o'clock. Okay, so July 1st. Hopefully, we'll see you again. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm sorry, Beth. What were you saying?
Nope, I'm good.
Can I just add in two quick, Rich?
Please.
If anyone wants a copy of the video, if you put in your email, that will get you the video faster, or a copy of the recording. Otherwise, I know this was widely distributed in many different ways that I can't guarantee that you will get the recording. So, okay, thanks, Susan. And as you put those in, I'll just put them on a spreadsheet and make sure I get them to you as soon as the recording's available.
Thank you, Madeline. Okay, and if there's not any further, I see people kind of jumping off. I'm just kind of hanging out to make sure no one wants to kind of jump in and ask a quick